Now, autism is a subject that's very rarely out of the news these days, and it's a subject that we will be covering on a regular basis here at Lanarkshire Live on a Monday. Now, bearing that in mind, we're kicking off today by welcoming to the studio Robert Mackay, who's the Scottish coordinator for the National Autistic Society. Welcome into the studio, Robert.
Thank you.
First of all, can we look at this actual autism itself in the sense that, for those who have not experienced autism, what would you say was people's perception of autism? Is it just a case of, did they look no further than the MMR and the Rain Man movie?
I think quite a lot of people take those two items and associate that as being the only things to do with autism. There are other people out there who do look at autism as being a particular mental health problem or a learning disability. And the important thing to say about autism is it's neither of those things. It's a very distinct developmental condition, and it doesn't necessarily mean that someone who has autism does have a learning disability. Some people will, but it's not in itself a learning disability.
I mean, when you actually refer to somebody as being autistic, it's not what I'm saying, like somebody's got a common cold, you know, there's a label, you know, you can see straight away that person's got a common cold. Somebody who's autistic, you can't spot an autistic person. You know, there's so many variations on the sort of the one theme, isn't there?
Totally. I mean, the classification is autistic spectrum disorder, and the use of that word spectrum really does emphasise the fact that that there's a great variety of ways in which someone can be affected by the condition. There are people at what we would call the more able end of the spectrum, who very much look like you and I, have sort of reasonably good communication skills, but just find it difficult to understand the social rules and to communicate with the world around them in the way that many others can. At the less able end of the spectrum, you'll have many children, young people and adults who can't communicate with the world, who may have no verbal skills whatsoever, and almost to the untrained eye appear to be locked into their own universe, their own world. So
how important it is to get diagnosed as early as possible?
It's very important, and it's one of the things that statutory agencies and voluntary agencies, parents across the country have been trying to get better at and get better services on the ground. The earlier you can get a diagnosis, the better interventions and support for the child or young person or adult with autism. But also for the parents and carers and the wider family.
So when a child has been diagnosed, what is the usual sort of plan of action, as it were?
Once the diagnosis has been given, a number of meetings need to take place with health professionals, clinical psychologists perhaps, speech and language therapists, people at the school, educational psychologists, to try and work out the best way forward for that child or young person. If it's an adult, then similar professionals will come into the arena for them. But it's very much about trying to plan what the best supports are for that individual, how they're going to work well, how are they going to be at school, how they're going to maintain a good sort of life at home, and if they can't be at home, where do they go?
There is not an actual cure for autism, but as regarding what is the future? What future holds for an autistic child? Because there's a lot of parents who would say, I don't know what my future holds for them. So what future is there for a child like that?
I think there's a lot of fear and anxiety amongst families about what the future holds, and we should always remain optimistic. I think there are many people on the autistic spectrum who can lead very long and fulfilling lives. Autism in itself doesn't cut your life short, but to get the best out of it, you need the best supports available. So I would say that to encourage families to look positively to the future, but also to try and seek the best supports locally, encourage local authorities, NHS boards, etc., to help develop high quality supports and interventions to enable people with autism
That's
to do their
great.
best.
Well, thanks very much for coming into the studio today, Robert.
Thank you.
Autism is a subject that there is a lot more to go into as regarding covering an area such as this, and we will be returning to that subject at a programme later on, hopefully this month.